We are going to get started. So, welcome to our New Year, New Books virtual party. You may have joined us for some of our virtual parties before, but this one's going to be slightly different. We have not read most of these books, but they're books that are coming out in 2022 that we are really excited about and would like to share with you as well. So we're going to do introductions, and we will just go in alphabetical order. So Allison, you're always first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Allison Corcoran. I'm one of the adult librarians.
I'm Catherine Bodie. I am one of the teen services librarians.
Hi, I'm Mary Cooner, and I am an early literacy librarian, which means I work with young children and their grown-ups.
And I'm Pamela Halloran, an adult advisory librarian, talking to you about adult books tonight.
And I am Tanya, and I'm a youth services librarian, so I work with kids ages 5 to 12. So most of my books are for the older end today. I see we just had a few more people join us, so if you're just joining us, welcome. Again, this book party is a little bit different, so these are all new books coming out this year. We are going to get started. One other thing to note is that there's not, if you have joined us before, there's not a time slide in between each book, so just be prepared that the slideshow is a little bit different this time as well. And
it's a free-for-all.
Free-for-all.
Not really.
Allison, you can get started. It's not a free-for-all. Time yourself.
Okay, so just one note, the adult books, Pamela and I did limit ourselves to just books published through early March, because then we would have been too overwhelmed. So my first title is Dava Shastri's Last Day by Krithantha Ramasetti. This actually came out in late December. Dava Shastri is one of the world's wealthiest women, but she's just received a terminal cancer diagnosis. She wants to know what people are going to say about her after she dies, so she has the announcement of her death released before she dies. Unfortunately, the timing of that gets a little mixed up, and that is how her children find out about her diagnosis. But they're in the house with her, so they know she is alive. So then we get a lot of backstory about how she came to be so wealthy, and also, though, some secrets about her life come out that she would rather have not discussed with her children. Just a really kind of fun contemporary book.
All right, I have grouped mine by the month that they are coming out roughly. The other thing that we will kind of give as a disclaimer is that one of the outcomes of the pandemic has been paper shortages, and so some publication dates have been pushed. And so while we've given you kind of a rough idea, or we'll try to give you a rough idea of when things are coming out, we can't guarantee it, because sometimes publishers are having to push the date further back. So I'm going to be chatting about the YA books that are coming out this year that I'm excited about. I'm going to go roughly through June, so you'll get a look at the first half of the year, the things I'm excited about. And for January, these are all actually out as of this week. Pretty exciting. I did get to read an arc of one of them. So In Every Generation is for our Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans. It is a new generation of Slayers. The Kindred is the second book of the author who did The Sound of Stars, which is a science fiction, and this one is about mind-paired aliens who end up on a fugitive spaceship that crash lands on Earth. Sounds very exciting. I love the cover of Anatomy, a Love Story, the fact that her dress creates the shape of a human heart, and it is a gothic horror love story taking place between an aspiring surgeon and a resurrection man from the 1800s. So very exciting. And then Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves is actually the one I got to read an arc of. If you liked Call of the Wild, this is like Call of the Wild in space on a Hoth-like, so Star Wars reference there, frozen planet with genetically modified wolves and crime bosses. And our main character gets pulled into this Iditarod style race. It's a lot of fun, very intense, pretty violent, highly recommend it.
You're muted, Catherine.
My mouse quit, so I had to get it going. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yay, my books. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about picture books. So I hope that some of you have young people in your lives that you read with and want some ideas of new picture books to share with them. I've grouped mine again differently than everyone else. I've sort of put mine together by theme. And all of the books that I'm sharing, I think are between now and June. So if you Google a title, you can definitely find when it's coming out. So I want to start with a couple of titles that are illustrated by one of my favorite illustrators, Dan Santat. He won the Caldecott Medal for the book Beagle that he wrote and illustrated. These two he has not written, but the first one is Endlessly Ever After, and it was written by Laurel Snyder, and it's a fractured fairy tale. It's also a choose your own adventure. So what's not to love? I think it sounds like lots of fun. The Blur was written by Min Lee, and Min Lee and Dan Santat previously, a couple of years ago, came out with a book called Drawn Together, which was beautiful. But in this one, they're introducing you to a new superhero, the Blur. And this child is able to do everything with supersonic speed, including growing up. Parents, does that sound familiar? From Jacqueline Woodson and Rafael Lopez, we have The Year We Learned to Fly. This is the same team that brought The Day You Begin a couple years ago, which was a very popular title. Two children hear from their grandparents how their ancestors used their brilliant and beautiful minds to show their strength and resilience. The children then follow suit, using their imaginations to overcome boredom and dream of what might be. This one is already out, so I believe it is already in the catalog for you to check out. From Anna Dudney, who is the creator of the Llama Llama books. Sadly, she has passed away, but her estate is still bringing us lots of new titles. We have Everything Will Be Okay, and it's illustrated by Judy Schachner, who is the illustrator of the and creator of the Skippy John Jones book. Skippy John Jones. I think that's right. Books. In this one, Little Bunny is having a bad day. In this rhyming story, Bunny finds some good in a day that starts out with a lot of bad. So, oh, I think we have another slide. Yes, Somewhere in the Bayou is by Jarrett and Jerome Pumphrey. They're brothers, and they created the books Old Truck and Old Boat. Old Truck won a lot of awards when it came out a couple of years ago. And in this story, a group of swamp critters discover that the log they're using to travel across the pond isn't a log after all. Dun, dun, dun. And then we have Hey Bruce by Ryan T. Higgins. This is another title in this super popular Bruce series that started out with Mother Bruce. And in this outing, readers follow the geese's instructions to make Bruce do whatever they want. It's an interactive book, so that should be lots of fun. From Aaron Reynolds and Peter Brown, we have Creepy Crayon. First we had creepy carrots, and then we had a creepy pair of underwear, and now the crayon gets creepy. The first two in the series were super popular, so there's no doubt this one will be too. And to meet all of your nostalgia needs, we have Mark Brown bringing back his character Arthur the Aardvark, who was in books and on PBS, and this is his 25th anniversary. The book is filled with quotations and life lessons, and I'm sure this will be a popular book for graduation gifts.
And I'm next, excuse me. I believe that all of the books that you'll hear about from me are either available in the catalog just in the last day or two and or on order. Don't Cry for Me by Daniel Black is coming out in February, and it is available to place your hold on in the catalog. Jacob, a Black man from Alabama, descended from slaves, is dying. He begins a letter to his adult estranged gay son, Isaac. In what I think of as a coming of age story, excuse me, Jacob looks back on his life and realizes that his own expectations and actions were what has led him to this place in their relationship. Jacob attempts to explain to Isaac his own role model and beliefs of what it means to raise a Black and masculine son in today's society before it's too late for some sort of relationship with Isaac. This is based on the author's own experience as his father was succumbing to Alzheimer's. It's a profound and beautiful book, and this is my favorite of 2022.
Those are big words. We're barely into 2022. My first book is Operation Sisterhood, and I will probably butcher the author's name, so I'm not going to attempt it. But it's already out. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten our copies in at the library yet. But this is being sold for those kiddos who like the Babysitters Club on Netflix, so the TV show, The Babysitters Club. And it's about a girl named Bo, and it's always just been Bo and her mom for as long as she can remember. And Bo has liked it like that. Until recently, that is, when Bo and her mom have had to move to Harlem and move in with not only her mom's boyfriend, but his daughter, Sunday, two twin girls named Lily and Lee, and the twins' parents, also along with a dog, two cats, a bearded dragon, a turtle, and chickens, all in one house. Bo is feeling a little squished, as you can imagine, and she's not really sure if there's room for her or what her place is in this new blended family. And so it's kind of about her and her figuring that out, as well as bonding with her four new sisters. So this will be good for those kids that like realistic fiction, and that was Operation Sisterhood.
Okay, a quick look at some science fiction and fantasy titles coming out. How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu is a very literary science fiction about the world recovering from a pandemic. Sorry, but there it is. But it's set in the distant future, and as we look for other worlds to inhabit and try to recover. Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. I mean, I picked this one up because look at that cover. It's gorgeous. It's the first in a duology that's based on Chinese mythology about the Chinese moon goddess. And The Starless Crown is by James Rollins. He is well known as an adventure, political thriller kind of writer, turns out a bestseller every year. But this is his first science fiction book, and it's getting great reviews. This is a man who really knows how to make you keep turning the pages. And Light Years from Home by Mike Chen. A father and son go camping and disappear for a few days. The father returns a couple of days later, claiming he was abducted by aliens, but the son doesn't come back. Obviously, people think the father's crazy. But we know from the start as readers that it is aliens and what happens sometime in the future when the son does try to return.
Without that time slide, sometimes it's a surprise whether or not there's an extra slide or not. I'm always surprised. So here's a few that I'm excited about for February. Just running through them really quickly. If you read Aqua que Amese's Pet, which won the National Book Award for Young Readers a couple of years ago, was very acclaimed, I think, by both adult and teen readers. Bitter is the prequel companion novel, although you do not have to have read Pet to enjoy Bitter, is what I understand. I have not gotten an arc of this one, so I did not get a chance to read it. Magical Boy started out actually as a webcomic that is being turned into a print book, and it follows a trans boy who finds out that he is descended from a long line of magical women who are destined to save the world, and he is trying to grapple with this destiny that he now has. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio is a Korean-inspired fantasy. I love Axio, and she writes all kinds of different stuff. XOXO was a K-pop story. Rebel Soul was about giant mech robots, and now we have some fantasy mythology. So all over the place, and I've never been disappointed by anything that I've read of hers. Reclaim the Stars is actually a collection of short stories by authors from the Latinx diaspora, and it is going to be both science fiction and fantasy short stories with Latinx characters. League of Liars, if you're looking for some fantasy that has a male main character, which is not as common in YA these days, is going to be that. It's a fantasy thriller, which sounds fascinating, and it is set in a world where those who practice magic illegally are prosecuted and often executed. And then You Truly Assumed is the one I'm most excited about, and it is the debut novel of a contemporary author, and she is writing from the perspective of 3 Black Muslim young women who are dealing with the aftermath of a terrorist attack that sparks Islamophobia in the country. And to kind of find an outlet, they start an online journal that goes viral, and suddenly they are on the national stage. So really excited for that one.
And now for something completely different, we have some humorous picture books that are coming out. I personally love funny picture books. And the first one I want to tell you about is No Bunnies Here by Tammy Sauer and illustrated by Ross Burak. I've actually seen this one already and have heard it read aloud, and it is absolutely hysterical. It's about a bear who comes looking for some bunnies, and the bunnies think, naturally, that the bear's intent is to eat them. So one of the bunnies tries to convince the bear that there are no bunnies here. It's a story about assumptions, and it's absolutely hysterically funny. From Emma Hunsinger and Tilly Walden, we have My Parents Won't Stop Talking, which I'm sure is a common lament by many young children. A girl's trip to the park is ruined when her parents meet friends on the way and then won't stop talking to them. From Dev Petty and Mike Bolt, we have Don't Eat Bees, Life Lessons from Hank the Dog, from Chip the Dog. I have Hank on my sheet, but it's Chip the Dog. Don't eat bees seems like an obvious thing, right? But still, it happens when you're a dog. Chip gives us hilarious life lessons only a dog could have learned. And this is the author and illustrator team who brought us I Don't Want to Be a Frog. And again, also from Ross Burak, but he wrote this one as well as illustrated it, is Goodnight Butterfly. And this is the follow-up to his books, The Very Impatient Caterpillar and The Little Caterpillar That Could. In this one, Butterfly is restless and can't sleep, but he uses some mindfulness techniques to calm down and drift off.
And here's just a very, very tiny number of the nonfiction books that will be out this year, 2022. The first one is out today, published today. When Valerie Bertinelli turned 60, she said enough already to trying for perfection in all things in her life and instead sought to find self-acceptance. This book is getting a lot of buzz. Viola Davis's book is not coming out until April, but this will also be a very big book. She wrote Finding Me for herself and anyone who is searching for a way to understand and overcome a complicated past, let go of shame, and find acceptance and self-acceptance. Go Back to Where You Came From, I'm Smiling Already by Wahajat Ali. I heard him talk about this very funny yet hopeful book. He grew up as a citizen in this country. He was in college when 9/11 happened, and his life as an American Muslim changed. This is definitely a must read. It's very enjoyable, very hopeful, and very telling. My Mess is a Bit of a Life by Georgia Pritchett. Some people say we are undergoing an epidemic of anxiety. Perhaps you've read about that and felt some of that yourself over the last, what dare I say, couple of years. Pritchett's book shares her adventures in anxiety in a very humorous and affirming way. It's for readers who liked Jenny Lawson's Broken in the Best Possible Way, and just many, many readers I think will enjoy this one.
Oh, you're not done.
I forgot that it's me again. This is one I wanted to spend a little bit more time on. I'm almost finished with it. The author, Brandon Presser, is a travel writer, and he sets this book mostly on Pitcairn Island among the descendants of the Bounty mutineers. You might have read the trilogy of books by Nordoff and Hall about the Bounty Mutiny, and surely some of you have seen one or more of the 3 movies based on that story. This book mixes in the historical tale of the mutiny that took place in 1789 and the remarkable feat of navigation which led to Christian Fletcher and the mutineers finding the very far away and very isolated Pitcairn Island, where the mutineers eked out a living. The island is now visited by a supply ship only 4 times a year. Presser, the author, bought passage to visit Pitcairn for the 3 months and then until the ship returned. So he examines what life is like among the mere 48 inhabitants and why these generations of descendants, mutineer descendants, choose to stay on this very remote island. It's a lively and fascinating book, and I can hardly put it down.
All right, my next one is The School for Whatnots by Margaret Peterson Haddix. Haddix is a pretty popular writer. She wrote the Among the Hidden series, which has been big for a long time. But this new one is a middle grade thriller. I can't read and talk at the same time. And so this is about a boy named Max. And Max finds a note under his keyboard that says, "No matter what anyone tells you, I'm real." Max knows that his best friend Josie had to have written the note because he would know her handwriting anywhere. But why she wrote it, and he doesn't know, and what it means, he doesn't know. It's a mystery. Max and Josie have been friends since kindergarten. They've been inseparable until now. It's the summer after 5th grade, and all of a sudden Josie has gone missing, leaving only that note and whispering something about whatnots. But Max is confused because why would he think that Josie isn't real? And what are whatnots? Max sets out to figure out what this note means and what has happened to Josie. But at the same time, Josie is trying to find Max. And there's an evil force trying to keep these two apart. And that's because Josie isn't or wasn't supposed to be real. So I actually just started this audiobook, not in time, but just started it. And so I'm really excited to finish this great mystery. So that's The School for Whatnots.
Okay, a couple of big mystery thrillers coming out. There's always big mystery thrillers coming out. Chloe Gates is missing. It's a pair of mommy-daughter bloggers, and the mother is the most horrible woman you've ever encountered in literature. I know Tanya would agree with that. She's read it. But what happens when the perfect little girl turns into a rebellious teenager? And then what happens when she goes missing? The golden couple, Marissa and Matthew, are the perfect couple. But if they're so perfect, why did they sign up to go see this unorthodox counselor who promises to fix any problem you might have in 10 sessions? What could go wrong there? The Maid by Nita Prose is a mystery getting lots of good reviews. It's a locked room mystery with a maid in a hotel who is the main suspect in a murder, but also the only one who could possibly solve it. I'm going to hand it over to Tanya for comments on Paris Apartment.
Try to put all these other ones on hold. So The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I was so excited for this one and happened to win an ARC. So it's by the same author that wrote The Guest List, which I also loved. The Paris Apartment is about this girl who she's going to stay with her brother for a little bit. She's kind of come across some hard times in a Paris apartment. But when she gets there, he's not picking up his phone. She's not able to get into the apartment for a little bit. But when she's finally let into the building, her brother's door is kind of cracked open and he's not there. As she spends the next few days in this apartment, he doesn't show up, and she starts questioning the other people that live in this apartment building. And they definitely know her brother, and they definitely seem to be hiding something. So this one was full of twists and turns. I'm so excited for everybody to read it.
Okay, March is a huge month for publishing in YA. So I'm gonna have 2 slides worth of stuff to share with you. All of the books on this slide are coming out on March 1st. And so there's lots to look forward to during the month. A Forgery of Roses, if you like Picture of Dorian Gray, this is a Picture of Dorian Gray-esque fantasy. The Lost Dreamer is going to be a fantasy mythology story inspired by ancient Mesoamerica, which I'm pretty excited about because there's not a ton in YA that has been published for that area. Gallant is the new book by author V.E. Schwab, who writes for both teens and adults. This is going to be one of hers geared toward teens. She's the author of A Darker Shade of Magic and other series, if you're familiar. And this one is a dark haunted house / boarding school mystery story. The One True Me and You is by Remy K. England, and it is, I believe, kind of their debut. It kind of walks the line between teen and adult. The main character is 19 years old and is a fan fiction writer at a fan convention. Very excited for this one. It should be a lot of fun. I've been missing my fan conventions the last couple of years. A Thousand Steps Into Night is the second book by author Tracy Chee, who wrote We Are Not Free, which was a pretty, not scathing, it's not the right word, but a gripping story about Japanese internment camps in World War II. And this one is going to be looking at a Japanese-inspired fantasy about an ordinary girl who is suddenly turned into a demon and is going to have a huge life of adventure that she didn't anticipate. And I couldn't pass up when I saw that Okoye was getting her own novel. I'm a huge Black Panther fan, very excited for Okoye to the People by E.B. Zaboy, who wrote American Street. And this is going to tell Okoye's kind of backstory as a new recruit for the Dora Milaje. So get excited for that one. It's an official Marvel, so it's going to be canon after this. And then a few more that are coming out later in March. The Blood Scion is a fantasy debut story that has a gorgeous cover. Very excited about it. Dig Two Graves, if you are a fan of Alfred Hitchcock, this is going to be the first of a series of stories that Gretchen McNeil is writing that are retelling of Hitchcock's movies. And this one is going to be telling the story of strangers on a train. Murder Among Friends is actually nonfiction for YA by author Candace Fleming, who wrote The Rise and Fall of Charles Lindbergh, which I loved. And this is telling the true crime, this is good for true crime buffs, the true crime story of Leopold and Loeb committing the perfect murder in the 1920s and getting away with it. Another thriller, Daughter, is about the daughter of a serial killer, and she is being recruited by the feds to help to see if she can get a confession out of her father for where all the bodies are buried, and she is very reluctant to join. And then Survive the Dome. I was lucky enough to get an arc of this one, so a review copy, and it is so good. It is kind of a dystopian entry into the Black Lives Matter movement. It's being described as The Hate You Give meets Attack the Block. I've also seen comparisons to Stephen King's Under the Dome, which I cannot vouch for because I'm a huge chicken and do not read Stephen King. So I don't know if it compares to that. But it is a fascinating kind of slightly futuristic world set in the aftermath of a series of protests in Baltimore, and the governor has decided that she is going to take justice into her own hands and has a new weapon basically that puts a dome over the city and cuts off communication. And it is from the perspective of 2 teen boys who are now trapped inside the dome, unable to get out. You're muted.
I'm muted. Now for something completely different yet again. I which wanted to, in the next 2 slides, I've just got a few picture books that are maybe the authors and illustrators are a little bit less well known, but these I think are pretty notable. First, we have I Forgive Alex, written by Kara Scoet, which I discovered today is a husband and wife team from France. That's the name they write under. And it's from these are the author and illustrator of I Walk with Vanessa, which was about a wordless story about a girl being bullied and another child deciding to walk with her to school in order to be her friend. And in this one, a boy named Alex upsets a friend and must ask for forgiveness. And it is also wordless. I think these are great, powerful books that can be a wonderful tool to give you and a child something to talk about. We have Beauty Woke, which is somewhat of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And this one is written by Noniqua Ramos and Paula Escobar. It's about a Puerto Rican girl who feels great about her heritage and how she looks, but later starts doubting as she grows older and sees how people who look like her are treated. Of course, her community helps her find her pride again. A is for B, an alphabet book in translation, is by Ellen Heck. I think it sounds really interesting. It's about how language is similar and different around the world. Next slide, please. From Tracy Sorrell and Madeline Goodnight, both Native Americans, we have Powwow Day. Tracy Sorrell is one of the most well-known Native authors writing writing picture books today, I should say. Madeline Goodnight is also Native American. I think I just said that already. In this story, River feels the healing power of her community as she recovers from illness and wonders if she'll ever dance in the powwow again. And finally, from Maria Gianferrari and Pete Oswald, we have Being a Dog, A Tale of Mindfulness. Tail, T-A-I-L, get it, tail. Pete Oswald is the illustrator of The Good Seed, The Bad Seed and The Good Egg series of books by Jory John that have come out recently. In this one, you enjoy the day with a child and their dog and follow the cues to bark, wag, and sniff along. Back matter in the book includes a mindfulness walk that you can take with your little one.
The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum has had so much pre-publication buzz, and I'm really glad it's finally coming out in February. Ray McMillan, the main character of this book, is Black and a classical musician who loves more than anything else playing his violin, the violin that his great-grandfather gave him. He is winning auditions and beginning to become known in the concert world. In spite of that culture's ingrained racism, he is becoming well known. He was asked to compete in the Tchaikovsky competition, and he's kind of partway through this competition, doing fairly well, when his priceless violin is stolen. Will it be found before the next round of the competition? The author is also Black and a classically trained violinist who has appeared in concerts with symphony orchestras. Brendan is also a music teacher who shares his story about how the practice of music literally saved his life from being lost on the streets where he grew up. So he has this book to kind of share the life of a Black classical musician. It was a very engaging story. I hope you enjoy it.
All right, this is The Aquanaut, and this is by Dan Santat, which is an illustrator that Mary mentioned earlier for some of her picture books. So he's an award-winning Caldecott medalist, and I think this is his first book for older kids, which I'm really excited about. And it's about a girl named Sophia, and Sophia's father was lost at sea, and since then she's been moping around something called Aqualand, which is a marine theme park, which I think sounds super cool. And Sophia's world is turned upside down one day when an aquanaut, shown on the cover, breaks into the theme park and into the research lab. Sophia is kind of able to befriend this aquanaut, and what she finds inside that head is a band of goofy sea creatures. They all realize that Aqualand is more sinister than it's being advertised, and they make it their mission to help free the park's marine animals that are being held captive there. So it sounds funny, it sounds adventurous with lots of fantasy. I'm very excited about it. That is The Aquanaut.
Hey, What the Fireflies Knew by Kay Harris is coming out in February. This falls kind of into that category in between historical fiction and contemporary, perhaps depending on your age of what you consider historical fiction. It is set in the 1980s. It is been compared to The Secret Life of Bees, but this one, instead of being about a white girl, is centered on Black characters. KB and her teenage sister Nia are sent off to live with their grandfather for the summer. Their father has died of a drug overdose, and the mother is having all kinds of problems. They hardly know the grandfather. They're in the middle of nowhere, don't know what to do there. But over the summer, KB learns to deal with the new dynamics of her family, wondering what's going on with her mother, finding out she has a whole extended family she never knew anything about, and her changing relationship with her sister, who, as she's becoming a teen, doesn't want to play and hang out with KB anymore. It's a beautiful coming of age story, and sure to be a big hit. I'm done.
All right, just a few for April in YA. There's more than this, but these are the ones I was most excited about. All the Best Liars follows along the current trend of psychological thrillers where you aren't 100% sure if the narrator is lying to you or not. That is so popular in YA right now. It is a modern psychological thriller / coming of age story that shows kind of the intensity of those first friendships that we have. My Dearest Darkest is a debut horror novel that is being described as Wilder Girls, which I found very unsettling, meets The Craft, the 1990s witch movie. So should have something for everyone who likes horror. If you don't, maybe steer clear. And This Rebel Heart by Catherine Locke, I'm pretty excited about. It is historical fiction, and it's from a period of history that I don't see covered very much in YA in particular. And so it's set in historical 1950s communist Budapest during the Hungarian Revolution that happened in 1956. And it follows a girl whose family survived the Holocaust only to have her parents murdered by the Soviet police. And she has the ability to try to save her country, but she is ready to let it burn.
So just 3 on this slide, so it'll be a little bit quicker. These are all sequels to other titles that came out in previous years. Queen of Kindergarten is by Derek Barnes and Vanessa Brantley Newton, and it is sort of a companion title to The King of Kindergarten. In this story, the girl who is the main character knows she is ready to rock kindergarten. This will be a great gift for a little person who's just beginning kindergarten. Pretty Perfect Kitty Corn is by Shannon Hale and Lee Win Pham, and it is the sequel to one of my absolute favorites from last year, Itty Bitty Kitty Corn. Those are really fun things to say, Itty Bitty Kitty Corn. In this story, Unicorn worries that he's not as perfect as everyone thinks he is, and maybe Kitty won't be his friend anymore. I think this is a common worry for kids and some adults like me. If You're a Drag Queen and You Know It is by Lil Miss Hot Mess and Olga de Dios Ruiz. The first title by this author illustrator team won a CLEL, Colorado Libraries for Early Literacy Bell Award in the Sing category. And the first one was called The Hips on the Drag Queen Go Swish, Swish, Swish. So this should be a fun follow-up and a great book to sing.
Somebody commented in the chat that she needs grandchildren. I want every one of your picture books, Mary. They look great.
You don't need grandchildren. You can just read them on your own anyway.
So historical fiction. Those of you who know me know that I keep an eye out for good historical fiction books. I enjoy them. Plus, many of them make for good discussions at book clubs. And so I've just picked out, you're probably going to recognize some of these authors, and these will be big books. Booth by Karen Joy Fowler comes in March. It's a novel about the Booth family, which produced that John Wilkes Booth. I'm partway through reading it. I'm pretty much done. The story does not focus on the Lincoln assassination, and it's told in a very interesting style. So I'm really enjoying that one. Her Hidden Genius is by that oh so prolific author and book club favorite, Marie Benedict. This is the story of Rosalind Franklin and her part in the discovery of the structure of DNA. And as you know from Marie Benedict's books, Rosalind Franklin did not get the credit she deserved. This is coming next week. The Last Grand Duchess by Bryn Turnbull is the story of Olga Romanov, the oldest daughter of Nicholas and Alexandra, the last Tsar and Tsarina of Russia. I enjoyed it a lot, except that, of course, hanging over the whole story is what we know happens to Olga and the entire family in 1918. That one is coming in February. The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis, another popular historical fiction author. She's also the queen of the dual storyline. In this one, in the 1920s, Lillian is the assistant to Henry Clay Frick, a wealthy art patron in New York. And then the 50-year later storyline finds Veronica Weber working at the Frick Museum on Fifth Avenue in New York, and she may be able to solve a long ago murder. That one also is coming next week. I think I have the next one too. So The Good Wife of Bath, this is just a really fun historical fiction I was able to read in advance. It's coming really soon. Based on Chaucer's tales and one of the more well-known stories, the story of the Wife of Bath. Brooks imagines what her life was really like. She starts with Eleanor's first betrothal and marriage in 1346, when the Wife of Bath, Eleanor, was only 12. We read about her additional marriages. She was married 5 times, some happy, some not so much. Eleanor was also a successful businesswoman, starting up and then losing several cloth weaving enterprises, which she used to employ her many female friends. Geoffrey Chaucer himself appears in this book. In the story, the two send just wonderful letters back and forth to each other with comments on the pilgrimages and other events of the day. And I was quite taken with Eleanor's story, and I just love this book. It will be published next week.
All right, this is my one slide, I think, with multiple books on it. These are 3 fantasy kids books that are coming out in March that I'm very excited about. The first one, actually, I'm going to go out of order. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Pilar Ramirez and the Escape from Zaffa. And it's about a girl named Pilar Violetta, who goes by Perp. And everything in her world is kind of changing right now. And she is very annoyed by it. Her Chicago neighborhood is gentrifying, and she has lots of extra chores these days because her sister Lorena has left for college. But one thing has not changed in her life, and that is the fact that her abuela and her mom keep silent about the disappearance of her cousin, Natasha. It happened 50 years ago in the Dominican Republic, and nobody will really tell Pilar or Perp what has happened. But Pilar hears that her sister Lorena's new professor studies disappearances, and she decides to take a little trip to visit her sister and this professor. While she's snooping around in his office, she finds a file folder with her cousin's name on it. When she opens it up, there's a blank piece of paper in it, and she gets sucked into this blank piece of paper. The next thing she knows, she's in this magical land called Zaffa, and it is an island swarming with coconut-shaped demons, butterfly shapeshifters, and a magical prison where she finds her cousin is being held captive. And so now Pilar has to figure out what the heck is going on, basically, and get back home. The next one is Wing Bearer by Marjorie Liu, and she has written many graphic novels. This one is going to be for fans of Amulet and Wings of Fire, which I'm really excited about. We need more of those. And it's about a girl named Zuli. And Zuli is extraordinary, but she just doesn't know that yet. She was raised by these mystical bird spirits in a tree that they called the Great Tree. And she's never left there. She's never been beyond it, and she's never had a reason to. Until now, there's an evil force threatening the tree and all of the magic that it holds that she lives in. And so her, along with her guardian owl, which I love, Frowley, they have to leave the tree to go on this adventure to protect it. So they come face to face with dragons. They find some new friends. There's a witch queen, and Zuli realizes that she is more important than she thought she was. And then the last one, Witchlings. This is the one I'm most looking forward to so far. This is going to be good for those kids that like Harry Potter, Nevermore, Amari and the Night Brothers, any of those, which I love all of those. This is written by Claribel Ortega, who wrote Ghost Squad, which is being turned into a movie as well. And this is about this town called Ravenskill. Every year in Ravenskill, witchlings participate in a blood moon ceremony, and they're placed into covens, and that's when they come into their powers as witches. The main character, Seven Salazar, can't wait to be placed in the most powerful coven there is with her best friend. She just knows that that's going to happen. I'm thinking about it like Gryffindor. But on the night of the ceremony, in front of the entire town, Seven isn't placed in one of the 5 covens. She ends up being a spare. Spare covens have fewer witches, they're looked down upon, and they're less powerful. And so even worse, when Seven and the other 2 spares try to perform the magic that will kind of bond them as sister witches, it doesn't work. So now these 3 witches have to perform an impossible task, and if they fail, they won't gain their full powers. The last coven that failed turned into toads forever, so they have a big task ahead of them. So that is probably the one I'm most looking forward to. That is Witchlings.
Well, nobody gets turned into toads in this book. This is one of my favorites. It's coming out February 2nd, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. A brother and sister haven't spoken for years, but upon their mother's death, they have to set aside their differences to fulfill her final wishes, which is that they have to go back to her house and listen to tapes she made telling her story. And she wants them to learn about her past and about the many secrets she's been keeping as her life moved from the Caribbean to immigrating to London and now to California. And only once they've put aside their differences can they share the Caribbean black cake that she's left in the freezer for them. It's great characters and such an amazing sense of place, whether it's all the scenes it's an unnamed Caribbean island. We don't know which one. The struggles of a Caribbean woman trying to live in freezing Edinburgh, Scotland, and California. Great locations for each. You will want to eat a black cake, but I suggest after researching it that you leave that baking up to the professionals.
Okay, a few for May for YA. Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho is going to be perfect for fans of K-pop music, K-dramas, or just looking for a fun prom story to read during the month of proms. The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes is a debut contemporary novel about the difficulties of going to Catholic school as a lesbian Latina. Maggie Stiefvater, I'm pretty excited about this. Maggie Stiefvater has come and chatted with us before as an author visit. And if you know her background, she actually went to school in Scotland and plays the bagpipes. So she was the perfect choice to write a follow-up to the Disney movie Brave. So Bravely is in fact a sequel to the movie, officially from Disney, and it takes place several years after the events of Brave, and it brings in some Celtic gods that Merida has gotten on the wrong side of. So very excited for that one. And then Ballad and Dagger, if you're familiar with Rick Riordan, who wrote the Percy Jackson series, if you haven't discovered that he has his own publishing company, go out if you have kiddos that like to read Percy Jackson, because all of them are perfect read-alikes. The Rick Riordan Presents series of books. And this one, Ballad and Dagger, is going to be the first young adult entry into the Rick Riordan Presents publishing company. Most of them up to now have been published for kids between like 4th through 6th grade. And this one is going to be for older teens. Very excited. It is going to be looking at some Caribbean mythology about the mythical island of San Madrigal, which sank into the ocean. And it follows the survivors who now live in New York, but are hopeful to return to their lost island someday.
Well, most of the other books I've shared with you are probably for toddlers and preschoolers, so I wanted to share with you some books for the littlest people on your list. First, by Antoinette Portis, we have I'm Still Up and I'm Up. I'm up and I'm still up. These are companion books about a baby who is, you guessed it, awake, and it has repeating words, shapes. It will be a regular read aloud. From Amelia Hepworth and Pintachin, we have Puppy Dog, What Can You See? You can't go wrong with an interactive Lift the Flap book. For babies and toddlers, it'll be a surefire hit. You ask the question and then look at the hints to guess before lifting the flap to see if you're right. It includes a mirror at the end to even further involve your little one in the story. From Benson Shum, we have Little Seed, and I just think that is the cutest little seed I've ever seen. Little Seed in this story wants to hug the whole world, but how do you hug a panda or an armadillo? Little Seed's going to find out. From Raoul III and his partner Elaine Bay, we have a new series of board books. The first two are My Nap, Mi Siesta, and My Party, Mi Fiesta. They are bilingual. And this is the team that brought you the Vamos books, which I love. This book features one of their characters, Coco Rocha, who is, yes, a cockroach, but don't let that stop you. The books are lots of fun. From Amy Reed and Jing Jing Song, we have First Morning Sun. This looks like it would be a lovely baby shower gift. Sharing your child's milestones with rhyming text and beautiful illustrations.
Yeah, I thought you had another slide, like always. Everyone always has another slide. Mine is Jennifer Chan is Not Alone. This is my second to last one, I think. And this is by THAY Keller. THAY Keller wrote How to Trap a Tiger, which was a Newbery Award-winning book a year or two ago. And this one sounds like it's a mystery from what I can gather so far. It's about a girl named Mallory, and Mallory's in middle school. Mallory knows the rules of middle school only thanks to her best friend Reagan. And the most important rule in middle school is obviously that you have to fit in to survive. But then Jennifer Chan moves in across the street from Mallory, and that rule doesn't seem to apply to her. Jennifer doesn't care about the laws of middle school or fitting in or the laws of the universe, but she does believe in aliens, and she thinks that she can find them. But when Jennifer goes missing, Mallory decides she is going to solve that case. So using clues from Jennifer's journal, Mallory goes searching. The closer she gets, though, the more Mallory has to confront why Jennifer might have run, and she has to face a truth within herself. So this one sounds very mysterious. I'm looking forward to it. Then that one comes out in April.
Now, last set, all the way out to June for young adult books. The Dream Runners is by Shweta Thakrar, who wrote Star Daughter, if you read that one last year, another fantasy and Indian-inspired fantasy, excited for. Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. Albert is the author of The Hazelwood, which I think was enjoyed by many adults and teens. It was kind of a dark fairy tale story horror. And Our Crooked Hearts is going to be a contemporary fantasy for her. And then Go Hunt Me, my last book I am most excited about. I just finished reading very recently Kelly DeVos's Eat Your Heart Out, which was a pretty funny zombie apocalypse novel. And Go Hunt Me sounds just as good. It is a spine-tingling thriller that follows 7 horror buffs who have been sent on their dream trip to a remote Romanian castle that turns into a nightmare when someone starts murdering them one by one. Pretty excited for that one.
Well, I wanted to end by sharing with you some upcoming titles by Colorado authors and illustrators. There are a lot of great authors and illustrators working in Colorado right now, so this is by no means exhaustive list, but these are some people that I just happen to know have some books coming out. 3 of these books are by Jean Reedy, who is a local author, and she already has one that has come out called Group Hug that already came out in January. But coming out later in the year, we have A Grand Day, illustrated by Samantha Cotterill, which celebrates the bond between a grandparent and grandchild. Me and You, in a book made for 2, is illustrated by Joey Chu, and it's the follow-up to the book they did last year called this, What Will You Do in a Book About You, which was a popular graduation gift. Sylvie is illustrated by Lucy Ruth Cummins. Now, Jean Reedy and Lucy Ruth Cummins previously had the book Truman come out several years ago, and it was a huge hit and won lots of awards, and it was about a little turtle. And this one, Sylvie the spider keeps watch over the people in her apartment, in the apartment building where she lives, and she keeps out of sight. But when something seems off, Sylvie must decide whether or not to step into the spotlight and fix things. Even Truman the turtle makes a quick appearance. From Andrea Wang, who had a couple of wonderful books come out last year, both a middle grade and a picture book that won lots of awards, has the book Luli and the Language of Tea coming out, illustrated by Hae-Wan Yoon. And this one is about Luli, who is in an ESL class, and she makes friends by sharing a cup of tea. And that cup of tea is something that is quite familiar to all the kids in the class, no matter what their home language is. Next slide, please. From Kaz Windness, author and illustrator, we have Swim Jim. It's about Jim, a crocodile who is afraid to swim, but he has to find a way to learn on his own terms. Illustrated from the illustrator Dao Pumaruk, who is a Colorado illustrator, we have Yes We Will, written by Kelly Yang, who is the author of the very popular Front Desk book series, middle grade book series. Dao Pumaruk is one of many Asian American illustrators whose work appears in this book. And then finally, we have Strut Baby Strut, which is a board book written by Amika Kroll and illustrated by Ebony Glenn. And it's a celebration of girls as they grow up. And we are proud to say that Amika Kroll works for Arapahoe Library. She is one of our Storytime specialists. So she has her first, it's her second picture book that has come out. This is her first traditionally published one. So check out Strut Baby Strut.
All right, and I think I might be last. So this last one, this is Grave Books by J.A. White. This is great for kids who like horror, but the best part is that this is the sequel to a book called Night Books, which is actually now a movie on Netflix. And Night Books is about a kid named Alex. He runs out of his apartment and he runs into a different apartment. He accidentally kind of gets coaxed into another apartment in the building, and this lady is a witch. And in order to kind of stay alive every night, Alex needs to read this witch a story. He's not the only one trapped in there. There is a girl trapped in there named Yasmin as well. And so together they continue writing stories and telling the witch stories, all while trying to figure out how to escape. Grave Books, all I know about it so far is that dead stories and dead witches are back to haunt Alex and Yasmin. So I'm really excited for this one. That's one of my favorite, Night Books is one of my favorite kid horror books. So watch the movie on Netflix. And I think that's it. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for staying with us for an hour and listening to all these great new books that are coming out in 2022. Catherine will email out the lists and the recording, Catherine, and the recording of this program. Let us know if you have any questions in the chat, but otherwise, thank you all so much for coming and have a great night.
Thank you.